I realized that I needed to change. I kind of elevated myself above other people and thought that, you know, I was this superhero going to not only save my country but liberate another country, and kind of was very judgmental of people, and in basic training, when people would joke about killing people or whatever, I would elevate myself above them and think that I was better than them, based on the different attitudes that they had. But so I thought that I was kind of resisting like this military training, and then I realized, well, I didn't realize then, but then I realize now that kind of they built up this pride that I had, where, you know, I thought I was better than everybody else, and then when it came to started doing things like the gladiator competition or whatever, and I'm not a huge guy or whatever, so you know, I didn't think I'd do very well, and it turned out to do really well, and so I started to think pretty highly of myself, and with running and shooting, and pretty soon I was writing home bragging about, you know, all the stuff that I was doing, and thinking that, you know, I was a pretty great guy and gonna do all these good things, and that's kind of the mindset that I had, was trying to separate myself from other people and just getting lumped into maybe this just aggression, but a very prideful mindset, and had that when I deployed as part of the surge in 2007, and just kind of all these assumptions that I had, and ways that I thought I knew the truth and no one else really had it, just kind of all started falling apart, just even from the very beginning. When we got to Iraq, we were in Baghdad, and we were moving into this factory in the industrial part of town, and again I thought that I was also liberating a different country, but as we're moving into this factory, like the whole town came out and started protesting peacefully and waving signs and flags and saying that they didn't want us in their neighborhood. So just kind of this idea that, hey, we're helping all these other people out, well, they told us to go home, and not only did we ignore that and kept pushing through, but as they tried telling us violently, because they tried telling us non-violently, that they didn't want us there, then we clamped down, and it just became this huge escalation kind of about who was really in charge, and seemed to get to the point where our strategy was like trying to out-terrorize the terrorists, and it's like, what are we really doing at that point? And just kind of questioning this whole idea I had of what strength really was, and I thought it was that, you know, I had my beliefs and I knew what was right, and I knew other people were wrong, and that they had to listen to my point of view, and that I was helping other people by trying to force it on them one way or another. And that kind of got re-emphasized by, you know, statements the president would make when he'd say, oh, we're not going to negotiate with terrorists, and I thought that was strength, and that sounded real hardcore when he said that, and just any form of weakness and compromise and negotiation, or that was weakness to do stuff like that. But what I was seeing on a day-to-day basis was that when we weren't negotiating and when we were using just kind of like brute strength, then things really weren't working and things were getting worse. But when we did sit down and negotiate, that's the only time I saw progress. One time we arrested this guy and had a lot of evidence that he'd been doing stuff and been involved in some attacks against us. And then we found out that he was the mayor of the district that we were in. So instead of sending him to jail, we turned him loose and started negotiating with him. And so just kind of all these statements that the country or the government makes publicly weren't matching up with what I was seeing on a day-to-day basis, and just kind of this knowledge that I thought I had, that I knew how everything worked and had all the answers, all that just kind of fell apart. And for a while I went through a period of time where I didn't think anything made sense and thought that war and life was just kind of a horrible, meaningless reality, and that the only thing that really made sense was whatever country you were from, and it was just sort of a struggle to live the most comfortable life you could, and that was that, and just kind of a very, very bleak outlook on things, and started reading a couple different books that sort of helped me, and one of the books was called The Perennial Philosophy, and that was by Huxley, and it was this book taking like all these different quotes from all these different like religious mystics and pilgrims and stuff, like from all different religions and time periods, and just kind of matching them up and showing how like people kind of have been saying the same things, and it's not like one group has a monopoly on all the truth, and just realizing that I had thought that I knew all the answers, and realizing too that a lot of what I was trying to do was to live up to what I was told were the answers, and all these expectations that people had on me, and I thought that, you know, success was living out these expectations and having other people think highly of me, and living for that, and wanting to be satisfied by how other people thought of me. I think that even if I wasn't in the military, or even if I wasn't in Iraq, that if that's how I'd been going about life, then I probably would have gotten frustrated sooner or later. And yeah, just kind of started realizing that it's not like one group like is right and everybody else is wrong. That there's so much common humanity, and I started to really learn about all that, and so I started recognizing that the problem was that I had been letting other people define what reality was, and that I had centered my life on trying to fulfill that, and wanted to go the other way, and wanted to do things because I thought they were right and not what other people told me to do. And so I was trying to define my own reality, and like all these excuses I had for not living up to kind of these things that I had been brought up, and I went to a religious school, and heard stuff all the time, like you turn evil with good, and love your enemies and stuff like that, and just kind of ignored that as, that sounds great, but doesn't have any practical value. But here I was with all the things that I thought practically worked, not working, and so I just really started kind of re-examining all those beliefs, and got to the point where I realized that even if at the point of a gun I could make the entire city of Baghdad or the entire country of Iraq or the whole world believe all the same things that I did, that it wouldn't matter, because as soon as I take away that gun, then they're just going to go back to where they were, and the only thing that really matters is this internal condition. And so that just kept growing and growing, and I knew at that point that I really had to start living my life a different way, no matter what the costs were. And that way, kind of, Connor and I started from having this common enemy and started to find this common goal.